Hey, welcome back everyone. We are going to talk about Skull and Bones today. More specifically, we're going to get into loadout customization so you can see all the great options you're going to have for making your ship exactly how you want it to be, make it play exactly how you want it to play so you can tear up the open seas. So they released a dev blog and they went over loadout customization, which is what we're gonna dive into. So first of all, it all is gonna start with choosing the type of ship you want. They got several different options. Some ships are gonna be better for transporting. Some are gonna be about firepower. Some are gonna be about speed. So first, you choose whichever one you want, and they're gonna have it. At least I've seen 10, 12 different options for different kinds of ships. And of all the different kind of options, you're going to have to take into account their cargo, top speed, gun ports, and their hull, all of which are going to have different values that you're going to use to kind of determine your play style and how you want to do this. One of the first categories we'll say for picking your ship is going to be the size. The size, of course, is going to affect the physical and visual characteristics of the ship. And so they're going to have the couple of different stats you're going to look at when it comes to your ship is the drop profile, which is going to basically decide how far inland your ship can go, whether it can go through rivers and near the coast or in oceans. So bigger ships, they're not going to be able to access some of the resources that are inland that you would have to go through like a river or a lake, to get to. So, you'll have to think about that as well. Smaller ships can get into tighter places, which can get you to more resources. And also you're going to have to think about their weapon availability. The bigger the ship, and of course, the more weapons it can have. But of course, bigger ships are going to have a bigger profile, less accessible into smaller areas, plus they're going to be slower and harder to maneuver. So you got to kind of weigh your pros and cons there with, do you want more firepower, do you want more maneuverability, or do you want to be able to get into a tighter area? All those are going to be things you look at whenever you decide the ship and the size that goes with that. All right, so next we're going to look at the category of the ship. They say that they are going to offer high-level pros and cons, and of course affect their general appearance. So we have cargo ships, which are, poor combination of speed, turning acceleration, but they're sturdy. They're built to last. They're built to take a hit, and they can hold more cargo. So that's fewer trips and, to hold the same amount of cargo, but they do have a bulkier appearance. And then you have navigation ships, which are of course faster, streamlined hulls, and they have the most sails, and they have more of a pointy shape to and look to them. And then you have like firepower ships, which are of course are going to have the most weapons, the most firepower. They're going to be lacking in other areas. They're not, like I said, they're not going to have the speed. They're not going to have the maneuverability, but they will pack a punch. They have more blocky holes, and they're kind of an average amount of sails, and kind of have what they describe as a squarish appearance. So once you kind of choose your ship, and you kind of pick, the size you want, the category ship you want, how you want your ship to look. Because, I know a lot of people are going to kind of base it off of the look of it, but also, also it's how practical it is for their solid gameplay. And everybody has a different solid gameplay. So there should be a lot of variety of ships. But of course, like every game, there's going to be a meta, I'm sure, that comes out, and people are going to be like, oh, that's the meta ship to have. And, you just use these, weapons with this ship, and this is the loadout. So I'm hoping that a meta doesn't develop for some time, though. Allows for a lot more diversity, makes the game more fun. So we'll see what happens. But helping with that comes the addition of perks. So perks are dedicated bonuses that are unique for every ship, which you're going to have to think about whenever before you get out there on the open sea. They give a couple of examples. They say the Ganja is a navigation ship, but has perks which increases front quadrant and ramming damage. So remember, the navigation ships are like the pointy, streamlined ships, and then also they have increased ramming damage. So that's definitely going to be an offensive option for the navigation ships, especially because they're the fastest. So you build up that speed, pointy ramming damage, and let it fly full send. And it says that'll help you break through quickly when navigating through hostile waters. And then it says the Padwakang, with its extra cargo capacity, perk makes it a perfect choice for merchants trying to load as many goods as possible in a single sail. And then they do mention, though, as you rise through the ranks and you level up and explore the world, you're going to, of course, unlock new ships, different stats, and different play styles. And then, so it's all up to you what kind of captain you want to be, what kind of ship you want to sail, and ultimately how you want to win. So once you have your ship picked out, and you got your perks, that come with the ship, which is going to help you decide. Then you choose your weapons. And this is where I think it gets very interesting, because there's a lot of variables to consider depending on how you want to play and what you're doing. You're going to have to think about things like range, damage, reload time, ammo consumption, trajectory, projectile travel time, area of damage. Those are just some of the things that are going to play a part in you choosing which weapons, when to use which weapons, and how effective those weapons are going to be against your opponent. And then so some examples is so the demi cannons have a faster rate of fire, will be deadly when used at close range, but are not suited for long range engagements. And a giant ballista takes time to aim, charge, but will pack a deadly punch at a long range. So that's just kind of an example of using the right weapon at the right time is going to be what decides who ultimately wins the engagement and who loses. So definitely some battle strategy and knowing the weapons and not just spamming the fire button. And just to add a little bit more complexity to this whole Skull and Bones combat game here, we've got, not only do you have the different weapon types, but you also have different damage types. So we're going to have blunt, explosive, piercing, fire, flood, crushing, and tearing. And some of these damage types can also apply temporary status effects on enemy ships, such as the burning. Obviously, it's going to do damage over time. And then recognizing what kind of armor they have and attachments, so you'll want to choose specific weapons to maximize your damage. So that goes back to the strategy of that battle knowledge and knowing, oh look, they've got that kind of armor, it's time to rock and roll with this type of weapon. I'm perfectly set up to be able to counter them. All right, so let's look at some of the different weapons here, what we're going to get to choose from. So first we have cannons. The weapon of family is most portrayed representation of naval combat, both historically and in fantasy. Dependable seems to be kind of the bread and butter. The only weapon small enough to be fitted on ships' inner decks, whereas other weapons are can only go on the top deck only. So how you see like cannons out of like the sides of the ship, like halfway down the ship. That's what they're meaning by like the inner decks versus just on top of the ship. And then they've got a few examples of the cannons. So we've got the demi cannon, which we talked about before. Short range cannon, very powerful, close range, loses accuracy at long ranges, and its shots scatter and it deals flooding damage. And then we've got the long gun, another type of cannon, long range precision weapon, might be slower to fire, but packs quite a punch, and it deals blunt or fire damage. So next up, we've got the mortar. So mortar, long range weapon, fires projectiles at a high trajectory, and it does area of effect damage at the aim location. Useful for hitting multiple targets, and it will scale the damage the further out from the center of the blast zone, the less damage it's going to do. And it can be mounted on medium ships and only in the auxiliary slots. So we're going to have different slots for different weapons. And that's purely a balance mechanic right there. So we've got some examples of mortars. We've got the blasting mortar, large explosive radius, but its projectiles take longer to reach their destination, and that's going to deal explosive damage. We have the siege mortar. Its blast radius is reduced compared to the other mortars, but it's very high amount of damage and does not have damage drop off from its blast radius. So it's going to deal crushing damage. So right there, that siege mortar is going to be nice having for more of a pinpoint strike, a smaller blast radius, but everything in that blast radius is getting hit for maximum damage. And then you have what's very interesting, and I guess this is going to open the door for the support builds for, for your fleet with your friends and everything. Somebody, you always got to have that one friend that plays support, that does the healing. So you're going to have this repair mortar. This mortar has no damage. Instead, it fires Oakum bombs to repair allied ships. So if you have that one friend, like I said, that is always the healer, they're going to be looking at these repair mortars. I personally have a friend who is never the healer, so this will be a skipped over option for him. All right, then we got Bombard. This weapon is kind of a mix between a cannon and a mortar. It looks kind of like a cannon that's pointed up, as you can see. It can be mounted on smaller medium ships, bow port, starboard, or stern quadrants. And so now we see not only do you have special slots for weapons, but you also, certain weapons are only going to be able to go in certain parts of the ship, whether it be the front, the back, the left, or the right, the bow port, starboard, or stern, respectively. And then they got some examples. So we have our Siege Bombard, shoots very dense, precise projectiles, dealing an extreme amount of damage in a reduced area. It's very effective very effective weapon against static targets and deals piercing damage. And then we've got our Flaming Bombard, as you would probably guess, high fire damage around the impact zone, and it deals, of course, fire damage, probably being able to proc the burn status effect. And then we have a Repair Bombard, similar to the Repair Mortar, with a shorter range, probably offers a bigger amount of heal, with a shorter range. And now we're getting into some heavy duty weapons here. We have the Ballista, an oversized missile weapon that shoots massive bolts that have to charge up to be able to shoot. Can be mounted on medium ships, bow quadrant only. And then they have two examples. We have the multi-bolt ballista and the twin winch ballista. The multi-bolt, as it says, can load a bundle of bolts and fire them all at once. It's very inaccurate, but it deals a massive amount of damage, so probably going to be really good for close range where you don't have quite a large spread. It's going to deal flooding damage. And then we have the twin winch ballista, uses twin winches for charge shots. They travel further than the classic ones and deal more damage, deals piercing damage. So high impact, long traveling ballista. It's probably going to do pretty damn good damage. And then we got some rockets here. All right, so we're stepping it up. Short range, rack mounted launcher, which launches an unguided rocketed propelled projectile. It goes on medium ships, auxiliary slot only. Some of the rockets, we're going to be able to get our hands on. It's going to be the revolver rocket and the field rocket. The revolver rocket, it has fewer shots per magazine, but more damage. It fires a shot at a time and deals piercing damage. And we have the field rocket, which has an improved range and projectile speed compared to the other types, and it's going to deal explosive damage. And that looks pretty awesome. I like the way that looks. It's exactly how you would expect a rocket launcher platform to look that was made like back in the 1500s. So that looks pretty awesome. That's going to be a lot of fun. And then what I'm kind of surprised about here is torpedoes. So, as you know, torpedoes are basically underwater rockets. So that's not something I thought that they would have had, obviously, but it's not something I thought that they would put in the game, but they did. So we have water skimming projectiles that deal high damage on impact, but requires a long reload time. It can cause either flooding or explosive damage. So we have the quick release, which deals flooding damage, and then we have explosive, a variation of the quick release torpedo that deals explosive damage. It's gonna be pretty fun. I'm gonna enjoy the torpedoes, I think. And last but certainly not least, we have Greek Fire, terrifying and highly accurate weapon that releases a torrent of flames and extreme short ranges, burning its targets to a crisp. High risk, high reward. You got to get in close. You got to almost take a vulnerable position, but man, that damage is going to be scorching. It's going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot. So if you see that mounted on your opponent's ships, you better keep them at a range and sink them before they get close, because that's going to be a lot of fire damage coming your way. All right. So in addition to the type of weapons, with a little previews of what we just talked about there, you're going to also get to choose some attachments, which is nice. That's going to come in the flavor of armor or cargo bags. They don't take up any weapon slots or anything, so you don't have to have them in consideration of that. But when choosing your attachments, it's going to be important for you to think about what you're going to be doing. If you're going to be, doing a run where you're not expecting to really be fighting anybody, then it's going to be probably better to have more cargo bags, because that's more cargo you can carry, less runs. You can get the job done faster. If you're expecting a lot of fighting, if you're expecting some combat, you're going to want to maybe armor up a little bit. So there's different kind of armors. They have strengths and weaknesses against different kind of weapon types. So we have reinforced wood armor, which is strong against piercing and crushing attacks, but weak against flooding or fire. We have metal, strong against blunt and crushing, weak against piercing and fire. Spiked metal armor, which is a heavier and spiked variation of metal armor that increases ramming damage. And terracotta armor, strong against flood or blunt damage, but will crumble when damaged by explosives or crushing attacks. Stone armor, strong against piercing and fire damage, but beware of explosives and crushing damage. And then we have leather armor, which is going to be strong against explosive and fire damage, but will tear when faced with piercing or flood damage attacks. So, as important as picking the right armor will be identifying the right armor, so you know what to use against it, what weapons are going to be most effective. And that's going to be that's your keys to victory right there. All right, and it looks like last but not least, we have furniture. The dreaded furniture. In addition to the attachments that we talked about before, your ship's also going to have room for furniture, and it's going to have furniture slots. And only so many of them. The bigger the ship, the more furniture slots, which is another factor to keep in mind when customizing your playstyle. So when it comes to combat, you can increase damage dealt from a specific quadrant, brace efficiency, ship hit points, improve crew-to-crew attacks, among many other points. That's some of the things that will be dependent upon, what furniture you've selected. And then on the survival side, you can automate certain processes like refining or fishing, ammo, repair kit crafting, cooking, or improve ship's cargo hold. So investing in some furniture will give you an edge, help you either survive, deal more damage, take less damage. So it's going to be an important part of your ship, and an important stat for you to think about how many furniture slots you have whenever you're selecting your ship. And an important last note about furniture is it's going to go hand in hand with synergy with your team, because your furniture bonuses will be shared with everyone in your group. So that's going to take some teamwork. And you don't want to double up necessarily if it's not going to give you a stackable bonus. So think about it whenever you're playing with your friends. What somebody has, you're going to get the benefits, and vice versa. So it's going to take some teamwork there, some team synergy, which just adds another level to this game, and it's going to make it that much more fun. All right, so there we go. We took a look at loadouts for Skull and Bones. I'll tell you, the more and more I see about this game, the more I'm getting excited about it. We're gonna have to see how it goes. And yeah, it's looking a lot of fun. It looks like it's gonna be a great experience. I can't wait to play it. I can't wait to get my hands on it. So I think next time we're gonna look at specific how combat works more specifically. But yeah, that's loadouts, and I'm already starting to think about the type of ship I want and the kind of loadout I want and the weapons I want, because some of this does seems pretty spicy, and I can't wait to get it on my ship. All right, well, thanks for checking out our loadout breakdown on Skull and Bones. Thank you guys for subscribing and listening, and feel free to hit the bell, put on for notifications, and subscribe. I appreciate it, guys. All right, I'll catch you guys next time, and we'll talk some more about Skull and Bones in the future.